Hi, my name is Greg McDaniel. Welcome back to another amazing edition of Real Estate Coach Uncensored.
And I'm Bernice Ross, and we have a topic that I am really on today called Even in Today's Crazy Market, Weak Agents Can Still Cost Their Sellers Plenty. I am so frustrated with what I see some of my friends and neighbors doing right now that is costing them $50, $100, $150,000 by going with a weak agent because they know them from Plain Bridge, or they know them from, they're a friend of their daughter's. And we're going to talk about what you can do to get the listing from these weak agents. You have to be proactive, but you can do it. Here in Austin, we're seeing absolute craziness. We get an ad from one of the local companies here, and they usually have about 20 listings. And 60% of them sold at $100,000 over ask price. And our price ranges here in Austin are not as high as they are, like on the coast where you are, Greg. But what we're seeing here in Austin, properties priced $400,000 to $800,000, selling for as much as $275,000. A house that I owned, I sold for $400,000, came on the market for $775,000, and it just closed for $1,050,000 a few days ago. And I mean, this is crazy. And the luxury properties, some of them are going at $500,000 or more. Now, given that I am licensed in California and Texas, I can't represent anyone, but this makes me nuts. So we're going to talk about 5 different examples of weak agents and how costly it can be to your sellers. And you've got to help your sellers understand, if you're in front of them, why they need to go with the strong agents. So Greg, scenario number 1, the pocket listing queen. We have all had experience with that. You want to talk about what you've bumped into in your business?
When it comes to the pocket listing king or queen, it is someone that's going to take that property and just market it to their database. Here's the problem. What if they can get more money for that seller, but they don't tell that seller that? There's the real problem. The seller goes into it and they're blind. They don't do this every day. And they just say, oh my gosh, okay, you can just get this thing sold for me for X amount of dollars. Great. But what if you can get more for me? It is an issue. I got to tell you, it is an issue.
One of the things that you can do to help overcome this is, if you're not tracking your list to sell ratio, and this is how much your property sells over asking price. Somebody who doesn't know any better is really happy to get full price. They don't know what the market has done in many cases. So assuming we had a $400,000 listing and it sold at $400,000, that would be a listed price ratio of 1.00. Now, assume that there's a really strong market and it sells for $450,000. That would be 1.125, or a 12.5% higher price. Okay, on that property, that seller who went with just the full price offer would have left $50,000 on the table. And Greg, I see this happening here, and we've got some specific examples.
Something that happened recently with one of my clients is when we were selling their home, the agent made a very high price offer, about $125,000 over the list price, which I was actually very, very thankful for. And then when it came to the appraisal time, I had to verify with the lender and everyone else involved in the transaction if they could make sure they can go through with a deal. And she came back to me. She said, Greg, would you mind if we could reduce the purchase price? And I looked at her, and I said, no, and we're not going to do that. And you have the money to make up the difference on the appraisal difference. And so we got the deal closed a couple of days ago. And it just comes down to standing your ground to be a strong agent, because you have a fiduciary with your clients to make sure that you represent them to the highest and best that you possibly can.
Let's go on to scenario number 2, Greg. I got a lot more than I paid. And these next 2 scenarios are things that happen to people who are close friends of mine. And the first is one of our good friends who sold his townhouse. It's 1,512 square feet. I encouraged him to make sure that he was going to list with the pocket listing queen here. And I encouraged him, I said, if you list with this person, be sure that they get it on the MLS and give the marketing a little bit of time for it to work. Well, what happened is, he was listed at 425. He got an offer of 415 and he'd paid 295. So he was satisfied. Well, what happened is, this offer came right in. He did not give the marketing a chance to work. And also, she failed to take into account what was going on over the condos. So the last part of the subdivision was just being, the last condo building was being sold. My brother bought over there, so I really know what was going on. But those condos were going for $292 a foot. So that's, it's a condo, single level, subterranean parking, one parking space. The townhomes are, 4 to a building, 2-car private garages, private patio, and, all fenced. Some of them have, kind of nice yards around them. And my estimate of what that property should have sold for should have been approximately 441,000 plus another 50,000 premium for what the condos sold for versus the townhouses. And so he left at least $26,000 on the table. But the next scenario, Greg, I didn't want to hurt my best friend's feelings.
Mm-hmm.
My friend who sold in December 2020 for 415,000. There was another woman here in the subdivision who put the identical unit on the market, same floor plan, just slightly different location. And she put it on the market in April. And her best friend had been renting the unit from her, and she didn't want to offend her. And then she had another good friend who was also in the business, and she was so worried about offending these people. She decided to list with the friend who she'd rented from. She decided to list with her daughter. Well, her daughter knew nothing about the area, knew nothing about what was going on here. And she advised this woman to list at 415,000. That's the comp from 4 months earlier. That's what she suggested. Came apparent to her immediately that she made a mistake. Well, thank goodness her son stepped in. He's a super high profile CEO here in town. And he'd been tracking what's going on. And he said, no, we're going to list high. And then here's what you're going to do on the marketing. And then you're going to let the marketing work. Well, guess what? She sold for $595,000 versus the 415. And for a woman who is single on a fixed income, who's in her late 60s or early 70s, that is a tremendous amount of money that she could have left on the table because of this agent. This is what makes me so mad, Greg.
You should be mad about that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is phenomenal that the son stepped in.
Thank God that he did. This is still going on here. So Greg, let's go on to number 4. We can't fix anything. And it's all these things have just happened here in the last 3 or 4 months. That's part of the reason it's top of mind for me. In this particular case, the agent who took the listing was very experienced, very capable guy. But the sellers, this man was active here, but then he became wheelchair bound. And what they did these really odd changes to the house. This house is, 4 years old, beautiful floor plan, high ceilings, great piece of property, beautiful, outside area. And what they did is they cut an opening in the entry hall, but in back of it is the laundry room. So when you walk into the front door, the first thing you see, instead of this beautiful, great room with high ceilings and beautiful kitchen, you see the laundry room. And then they took the doors off the master bedroom and all the toilets. So he had, it's just like no doors. And it's just, and they wouldn't paint, they wouldn't put the doors back on. They just, it just made everything a hodgepodge. So, we are in a super hot market here, and that property, because they wouldn't do the work, and the agent said, he'd gotten the bids for it, they wouldn't do the work. He did his job, but Long story short on this, he wasn't strong enough to get them to be persuaded. Now, Greg, how would you handle it? Because this property now has been on the market for almost 2 months here in Austin. And it's a great property for somebody who just wants to come in and do that cosmetics.
One of the things that we do, we use a company called Box Brownie, and they do virtual staging, which is absolutely fantastic, by the way. We've used them multiple times, and it is just knocking it out of the park. Extremely affordable. Curbio is another incredible company that you can go in, and they'll do some repairs, and they take it out of, they deduct it out of your sales proceeds. That's something that we actually have done for a couple of our sellers. And our sellers, we put about $10,000 of our own money into fixing up the property. And one of our most recent sellers, we did $10,000 in. This is a $2.1 million listing, and they netted like $250,000 more than they could have if they didn't use this. Help them buy a property that they really wanted to move into. And then on my side, I was able to help them sell their home, buy another home, and then help them sell their investment property and buy another investment property and increase their bottom line. So these are incredible opportunities. So if you don't have the cash, look at Curbio, definitely look at Box Brownie, and see how you can represent your sellers to the highest and best use.
Greg, that's a fantastic story. 5 different transactions due to that $10,000 investment that you've got back. This cost you nothing.
Nothing.
This is absolutely brilliant. Well, scenario number 5 is the worst one of the bunch. Another property came on the market, and the person who took it is a very nice person who's older. And it's the same floor plan as my house. So, I know what this thing is worth because I track it. And owner's wife died, and the owner decided to list with one of their bunco buddies. Okay. So here's the marketing on this. He wanted to get this property sold right away. That was the key thing. He just, so not even time to clean the carpets. But this is her marketing. So she puts a brochure box up on Friday with one brochure pasted, taped on the inside. Wait, it gets better. She takes 6 blurry pictures of the inside of the property and doesn't take any of the backyard here. And, yards here, because it is a lock and leave community, are at a premium. This property has one of the best yards in the subdivision. It's beautiful. It's shaded, but she didn't do that. It's a major selling feature. And then she held an open house on Saturday and Sunday, and they got one offer, and it went pending on Monday morning. She did nothing to market. She did nothing to let the marketing work. I mean, it's just, put a sign in the front yard and do open house. This is the thing that makes me nuts. My tracking on the comps, I don't know what it's under contract for. It should be at least $65,000 higher, and Zillow had it at $115,000 higher. Right now, if there's a pocket listing that's under contract that is over $100,000 more than this one, and there's another one that has sold that is over $200,000. It's got about 400 more square feet, but it's $200,000 more. That woman left $100,000 to $200,000 of that seller's money on the table. I mean, it just makes me nuts.
It begs the question of this. When in regards to being a good agent, top agent, number one agent, or being a weak agent, what's your interest? Is it your interest, or is it going to be the interest of your fiduciary relationship with your client? And the story I told about my client that I helped him sell, in move, and I got those 4 or 5 deals out of it. I literally actively tried to keep him in that home. I tried to get myself out of a deal. And the reason why is because I'm not a weak agent. I'm a strong agent, and I try to represent my clients. And so what does weak, what does strong really mean? And I think that's a question a lot of people need to really ask themselves.
Now, to combat these weak agents, the show that we did on email marketing with Jimmy Mackin, great show. We've got it linked up for you. You definitely should take a look at it. But he said, tell the story. And so he uses his email marketing, and this is an example from one of their clients at Curator. Says subject line: 35,230 people viewed the home at 123 Main Street. The body of the email says, this home was listed for 12 days. It had 23 offers. It's under contract with an all cash offer of $28,325 over asking price. It's sold for 8% higher than the other comparable sales. And what Jimmy said is that that 8% difference, if that's on a $500,000 property, that agent got that person $40,000 more. And that's your value proposition right there. From my perspective, the bottom line is to track your list to sell ratio. If you're not doing this, start doing it right now. Know what the average market numbers are in your area. And if you're over the average, use that on your listing appointments. Greg, what's your final takeaway for today?
The number one thing is to be fearless in regards to negotiating for your clients and always stand up for their rights.
So, Greg, here's the bottom line. If you have a seller who's thinking about listing with their bunco buddy, and you know this person is a weak agent, it's going to cost that seller a lot of money.
Yeah.
You need to show them what you can do to help them achieve the highest possible price for their property. Track where the numbers are trending. Track how much your list to sell ratio is higher than the average, and give the marketing a chance to work. And explain to your seller your goal is to help them get the highest possible price. Compare my marketing, compare the number of page views, the number of showings we have, the amount that we've gotten over, and then ask for that data for anyone else that you interview, and then make the best decision for you and your family.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us today, and we'll see you next time.